you've seen, you're not a very good witness. You just tell what you've seen. So Jesus said, I have appeared to you, Saul, for this purpose, to make you a witness of the things that you've seen, meaning this experience, and the things of the which I will appear to you. So he said, I'm going to come back and talk to you some more. So that's pretty simple instructions, is it not? And so Saul did that. Right away he changed his name from Saul, which means destroyer, to Paul, which we call him Paul. Paul means one who builds. That's a better name, one who builds. And now he has a kind of a simple mission to be a witness, to talk about what he's seen. What had he seen? Well, if you read his story, 3 different times we're told that story about the bright light appeared to him, and he tells it over. That's what he had seen. And as his life progressed, he tells us, we read in his letters, Jesus appeared to him other times. When he wrote to the Galatians, a group of people in a region called Galatia, he wrote them a letter and he said, the message that I'm preaching, he said, I didn't get it from men. Nobody taught it to me. I got it directly from Jesus Christ. He told me what to say. Jesus gave him the message. And Paul's message is very interesting and very simple. It's not complicated at all. We're going to see it here in just a minute. So Paul is off on his mission, you see. Now let's begin reading let's start with verse 9, get the context here. A vision appeared to Paul in the night. There stood a man of Macedonia. That's a region in Greece, by the way. And prayed him, saying, come over to Macedonia and help us. Alexander the Great, you might have heard of him. Great Greek warrior. His father was called Philip of Macedon. That's the area that he's talking about here. And so Paul he saw this vision of a man from Macedonia saying, come over to Macedonia and help us. So he had made the logical decision. Verse 10 says, after he'd seen the vision, immediately we endeavored to go to Macedonia, assuredly gathering that the Lord had called us to preach the gospel to them. And therefore, loosing from Troas, we came with a straight course to, that's a hard word, Samothracia, and the next day to Neapolis, and from there to Philippi, which is the chief city of that part of Macedonia, and a colony. And we were there many days. Now, let's skip down a little bit, get what we want to get to. Verse 16. So they're in Philippi. And it came to pass, as we went to prayer, a certain damsel, that's a woman, possessed with a spirit of divination, met us, which brought her masters much gain by soothsaying. Now these are old-fashioned words, divination and soothsaying. It means fortune-telling. It means a person that, like a person that tells you, gives you advice, well, you know what fortune teller means. And so, I suppose most of the time we presume that people like that are just fraudulent, and probably that's safe to guess, safe to assume. And, some people believe in it, some people don't, but I think it's safe to say most of them have been fraud. But we're told this woman was not a fraud. She was possessed with a spirit of divination. That means there was some sort of entity that, it says, possessed her. Now that's not a very good situation to be in, possessed by some kind of a spirit like that. And it says that she brought her masters much gain by her soothsaying. Evidently it was working, and her masters who controlled her were using her, and people would pay money because evidently there was some validity and some knowledge to what she was dispensing by means of this spirit. Verse 17. The same followed Paul and us and cried, saying, these men are the servants of the Most High God, which show unto us the way of salvation. Now we'd like to be able to say, well, these demons are lying. That's not a lie. That's true. Her spirit of divination told her the truth. That's true. What she said was true. The same thing happened to Jesus. If you read in the Gospels, sometimes he would go into the synagogue and people possessed with demons would cry out and say, we know you who you are, the Holy One of God. That was true too, wasn't it? Right? Jesus, in his ministry, the devils recognized him. They knew him. They were afraid of him. And they would say, what have we to do with you, Jesus, Holy One of God? Have you come to torment us before the time? They knew who he was. They knew what he was all about. They knew he was greater than them. This woman, possessed with the spirit of divination, recognized who Paul was. He says, these men are the servants of the Most High God, which show unto us the way of salvation. It says she followed them and cried this out. This she did many days, verse 18. But Paul, being grieved, turned and said to the spirit, I command thee, in the name of Jesus Christ, to come out of her. And in the same hour he came out. Now, some people struggle with this and wonder, number one, well, want to find some fault with what she said was true. And I've heard some people explain it this way, why Paul did this, saying, well, Paul didn't want that kind of advertisement. Well, that might be true too, but see, it says he was grieved. Here's my thought, why he was grieved. You know why I think he was grieved? Not by what she was saying, which was true. What grieved Paul was that here is a woman that is controlled and possessed. He wanted her to be free. That's what I think. He was grieved because she was in this lamentable position of being controlled not only by this spirit, but these men who were dominating her and controlling her and using her for their profit. Paul didn't want her going around in this kind of condition. You know what Christianity is, a little side thought, is about being free. Not being dominated or controlled, being free. So Paul turned around after experiencing this for a few days, and he was fed up with it. He just had enough of it. Not because what she was saying was wrong, but because she was under control of not her own will. So he turned around and he gave her a real blessing. He said, not to her, but to the Spirit. I command you in the name of Jesus. Why did he say that? Because the demons are afraid of Jesus. And Jesus has more power than they have. And they knew who he was. They know who Jesus is. And it says the same hour he came out. You know what? He didn't have any choice. Why? Because Paul, in the place of Jesus, acting as his agent, commanded him to come out. So he didn't have any choice. It's like a policeman. You know, you've seen the movies where they knock on the door and say, open the door in the name of the law. You know, right? Well, they say that, don't they? That means that the law is backing, the government backs them up. Yeah, that's what they say. So Paul, acting in the name of Jesus. So he didn't have any choice. So now the woman's free. Great. You think, that's a good thing. But not so. Verse 19. When her masters saw that the hope of their gains was gone, evidently whatever happened was immediately obvious that she was not what she was before. She was free. Well, now she's free, but she doesn't have that power to tell fortunes like she used to have. So they saw the hope of their gains was gone. They're not happy. So they caught Paul and Silas, and they drew them to the marketplace, to the rulers, and they brought them to the magistrates. And they said, these men being Jews do exceedingly trouble our city. They didn't know what it was all about. They thought these are this heretical sect of Jews. That's the way they looked at it. They teach customs which are not lawful for us to receive, neither to observe, being Romans. These wild accusations they've got. And the multitude rose up against them. They got a crowd together, see? And the magistrates rent off their clothes. That means they tore their garments. They're really mad. They're upset. That's what you do when you're really upset in this culture. And they commanded to beat them. It's like a mob violence scene. And when they had laid many stripes on them, they really beat them here. And they beat them, they cast them into prison, charging the jailer to keep them safely, who, having received such a charge, thrust them into the inner prison and made their feet fast in the stocks. So not only were they beaten up, and that didn't probably feel very good, that now they're thrown into prison, but not just prison, the inner prison. And not just in the inner prison, now their feet are in the stocks. Man, it's like everything's going wrong here. And what did he do to deserve this? All he said was to this woman, be free. I command you in the name of Jesus Christ, to the Spirit. And he set this one woman free. That's all he did. He wasn't out raising a mob. He wasn't out doing anything in insurrection, nothing. He wasn't robbing banks. He wasn't murdering anyone. He just set a woman free. That's all he did, right? And so now he's in prison with his companion, Silas, in the inner stocks, in the inner prison. Their feet. You know what stocks are? Have you ever seen those things in movies? When I lived in Massachusetts, I saw some. They had because the Puritans used to put like witches on trial, and it's these wooden things, and they open up, and they got holes, and you can put your hands or your head or your feet in these little holes, and they clamp it down. That's so you'll be uncomfortable, so you can't move around. It's not just to hold you in place, but to make you uncomfortable. So now they're all beaten up, and their feet are in these stocks, and they're uncomfortable. What many people would say is, man, I have made the wrong career choice. I have made a bad decision. And it says at midnight. Oh, to top it all off, now it's midnight. Paul and Silas, look at this. At midnight, if it was me, we might say, at midnight, he complained and cried. Why me? But Paul said, at midnight they prayed and sang praises to God. Now that's good. That's a good thing to do. When it seems like everything's going wrong, this is a good response. He's doing the right thing. It says the prisoners heard them.